Oh, hello. I'm Matt from Leicester Libraries Neighbourhood Services, and you just caught me playing with my new gadget. Now, when I say gadget, I bet you think of something modern, like a mobile phone, or a game console, or one of those whizzy electric scooters. But gadgets, well, they've been around for thousands of years. This one is called an Archimedes screw, and it was invented over 2,300 years ago in the city of Syracuse. Now, if you want to find Syracuse on the map, you need to find the Mediterranean Sea, and then you'll see a big country like a boot kicking a little country like a football. The boot, that's Italy. The football, that's Sicily. And right on the south tip of Sicily is the city of Syracuse. 2,300 years ago, in Syracuse, there was a king called Hiero III. But Hiero III, he hadn't been a king very long. He used to just be a general. And he had confidence problems. He didn't feel as important as the other kings in the area. He didn't feel as important as the king of Athens. He didn't feel as important as the king of Sparta. And he certainly didn't feel as important as Ptolemy, the king of Alexandria in Egypt. And he needed something to boost his self-esteem because, well, kings, they do like to feel important. So he sent for his advisors. What can I do to make myself noticed by all these other kings so that they think that I'm the most important king in the region, he said. Your Majesty, you could build a great army. Oh, armies. Oh, everyone's got an army. Been there, done that. How about a huge golden crown? I've already got a crown. That's no good. I know. You could have an epic poem written about you. It's already been done. You've not read Homer? How about a ship, Your Majesty? A ship. But not just any ship, a big ship. A great big ship, an enormous ship, the biggest ship that everyone has ever seen. It's got to take 600 soldiers and horses, and we'll have a gymnasium and a temple to Aphrodite and a great big catapult to throw stones in case we meet any enemy ships. That's what we'll do. We'll build a ship. And so, King Hiero III, he called for his shipbuilders. And his shipbuilders came with their hammers and their saws and their planks of wood over their shoulders. And they started to hammer. Bang, bang, bang. And they started to saw. And they started to build the biggest ship that anyone had ever seen. And it grew. And it grew. And it grew. Now, at that time in Syracuse, there was a young man called Archimedes. We'll call him Archie. And he was an inventor, and he was a mathematician. He was very, very clever. And he stood and he watched the progress of this ship being built. It'll never float, he thought. It'll never work. And he watched and he waited. And the ship was eventually built, as big as a castle. Enough room for 600 soldiers, for horses, for a temple to Aphrodite, for a gymnasium, and a great big catapult to throw stones in case they met any enemy ships. And they took the ship to the slipway, and down the slipway it went, and into the sea, and glug, 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 down to the bottom of the deep blue sea it went. Because, well, it was just too big, and it was just too leaky, and the water was coming in faster than the water could be bailed out, and no matter how many times the servants ran up and down the stairs with their buckets to get rid of the water, they just couldn't run fast enough because the ship was so huge and the stairs were so many. And the ship just sank. And so did Hiero's spirits. Whatever can I do? I need to build the biggest ship. Your Majesty, there's a young man outside who wants to talk to you. His name's Archie, and he thinks he has a solution. Send him in, said Hiro III. So Archie was shown in to the king's chamber. Your Majesty, I believe that if we could invent a way to pump the water directly out of the bottom of the ship and over the side without the servants running up and down with buckets, we could make your great ship float. Oh, please, please, anything. I will reward you with anything you ask. I don't want a reward, said Archie. I'll do it for the glory of Syracuse. And so he set to drawing, and he set to calculating, and he set to drawing, and he scratched his head until he came up with an invention. If he positioned a screw at 45 degrees with one end in the water and somebody turning the handle at the other end, the water would be pumped up the screw and out and over the side of the ship. And so, that is what he did. And the shipbuilders came with their saws and their hammers and their planks of wood over their shoulders, and they started to hammer and they started to saw, and a new ship grew and grew and grew. And it was big enough for 600 soldiers and for horses and for a temple to Aphrodite and for a gymnasium and for a great big catapult to throw rocks in case they met any enemy ships. And they installed a special pump, the Archimedes screw. And they took the ship to the slipway and whoosh, splash, down into the sea it went. And glug, glug, glug. But they wound the screw and the water came up and out and over the side, and they wound the screw and the water came up and out of, and the ship stayed afloat. And King Hiro was so happy with his great big ship. There was just one problem. It was so big that it did not fit into any of the harbours in the whole of Syracuse, and he had nowhere to park it. I have an idea, said Archimedes, young Archie. He said, if you want Ptolemy to think you're as important as he is, why don't you give this ship to him? And so they sailed that ship from Syracuse to Alexandria. And even there it was too big for the harbour. But they found a place to park it, and that's where it stayed. And that ship never went to sea again. But you know what? It was fine. Ptolemy, he felt important enough already, and he liked to party. And now he got the ultimate party ship right on his doorstep. And that is the story of how Archimedes' screw was invented, one of the world's earliest gadgets.